All right, welcome. Apologize for the delay as I had some technical difficulties. As I have traveled from New Zealand and now back in Chicago and getting back into these. So, quickly about me, I am Deborah Wallace, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm the creator of Positive Reframe. And when life feels heavy and is moving way too fast, we need to take time to pause and process so we may connect to our light. And so many of us are rushing to the next thing and reacting instead of responding and carrying so much stress and strains in our hearts and our relationships. And this is about slowing down so we can strengthen resilience, ease anxiety, and open space. My work really weaves in neuroscience, emotional intelligence, multicultural wisdom, faith, compassion, so that we may create a more child-wise relationship way of living. Thank you for joining and giving yourself permission to pause so that your nervous system may reset and clarity may emerge. As I'm hoping in these next 20 to 30 minutes, you come out feeling lighter. Usually the structure I do in these pause and process is the first 10 to 15 minutes. I'm providing psychoeducation, personal antidotes, stories, reflections, and then the last 10, 15 minutes, I'm actually walking us through um, an exercise, an intervention, something you can weave into your daily life. Because our nervous system needs consistency. We need consistent opportunities to help our nervous system feel safe, seen, soothed, and be our best selves. And before I go on any further, it's really important to know, this is my disclaimer, that this is for education and empowerment only. While I draw from personal and professional experience, this live stream isn't meant to replace professional advice, diagnosis, and treatment. So I highly encourage that you seek out other referrals, people you trust, healthcare providers, if anything you talk about feels disturbing, overwhelming, creates your negativity, that's a signal for you to reach out, and that takes bravery to do that. I am also licensed in the state of Illinois and Wisconsin. If anyone is on, I'm hearing an echo, so I want to see if someone can tell me if you're hearing an echo. If I need to make any adjustments, let me know. Let's see. I'm not getting any feedback from other than the feedback I'm hearing here. Hopefully it's okay. Um, so I start every session in my practice, and what here is taking a deep breath. So let's take a deep breath. Exhale. And I think I figured out what the echoing problem was. So hopefully that wasn't being recorded double time. I apologize. This is life. Life is full of variables that are outside of our control, which is more reason why we need to make time to pause and process. So take a breath in, breathing in through your nose. Exhale long. There's no right or wrong in this space. It's really key that you meet yourself where you're at. And as I mentioned, I think I mentioned, I focus on complex PTSD and child developmental trauma. So a lot can come up in your nervous system that's just not happening now, but memory, the body keeps a score and everybody is different and everybody needs different things to help your unique nervous system feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. So I just want you to just take a few, at least 3 breaths at your own pace, breathing in through your nose, imagining filling up oxygen to the trillions of cells in your body, exhaling long. And some people might, it's very common as you take some deep breaths that you'll be noticing, oh, I have to do this. Something else is more important because the society doesn't give us permission to pause. It's go, 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 go. Yet, unfortunately, what happens, and I've done lots of talks, but our nervous system just keeps filling up, filling up, filling up, and it can only take so much. So we either explode, that's when we're yelling, doing things that hurts others, or we implode, and that's where our body, we have illnesses and get sick, and we have more negative thoughts and depression and anxiety. So we go inwards, and we harm ourselves. So it's so important to make time to pause and process so that we can just address what's coming up. And I want to ensure everyone, everything that's coming up doesn't mean it's real and needs our attention. I focus a lot on mindfulness. I've given lots of talks on that. So today, what I really wanted I'm going to talk about the exercise I'm going to walk us through, and it's called my ABCs, which I have created. As I've mentioned, I do a lot of neuroscience. So I've trained in EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I'm trained in somatic experiencing. I'm trained with, I have my certificate in trauma studies, Bessel Vanderkolk, in Dr. Bruce Perry, neurosequential therapy, as well as polyvagal theory with Dr. Stephen Porges. I'm a certified safe and sound protocol professional. Anyway, I have lots of training, too much. And the whole point of it is we are actually all wise. We don't even, when we pause and connect, we get to connect to our higher power, our intuition, our gut, which knows well beyond anything that's in a textbook. So the acronym I created is called ABCs, and it interweaves all these principles of all these therapies that I have found working, that just seems to work with everyone. And I've been a therapist for almost 25 years. And in my own life, of what I've dealt with, this has been what has been most helpful. And so A stands for acknowledgement, B stands for breathing, and C stands for compassion, containment, and coping thoughts. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that now, and then we're going to walk you through doing it more in detail. But some of the neuroscience and psychoeducation behind acknowledgement. Some people think, what does that mean? Acknowledgement, very simply, is just naming it to taming it, just noticing it. It's like you're stepping back, witnessing what's coming up in your mind, your body, your spirit, and naming it. You're acknowledging it. It's like someone comes in the door, hello, you acknowledge their presence. And that's what you're doing with these emotions. I am also trained in IFS, there's parts. So you're just acknowledging whatever is coming up. And it's thoughts, feelings, sensations, images. There's no right or wrong. You're just kind of scanning and noticing what's coming up. And so that's what I'll walk us through when we do that. And for some people who haven't, because I work with the gamut, we are human beings. We exist. Everything exists on a continuum. And so there are some people who, when I say acknowledge, they're like, I feel nothing, nothing's coming up, nothing. That may be your experience. And so at that bare minimum, you're noticing, I'm feeling nothing. This feels uncomfortable. I feel like don't know what I'm doing here. And then the other end of the continuum is more highly sensitive people, or those who have complex PTSD, and or have any trauma in their history. So when you pause, you may start thinking about everything. I tend to be more on that side of the spectrum. So, I am noticing. I mean, I just had the stress of I was late because it wasn't working. So then I had all that going on through my mind. I have what's going on in this world. There's wars going on. There's killings going on. There's systemic abuse happening at alarming rates. I just recovered, am still um, dealing with recovering from cancer, and I am now in my mother's home who passed away last year, which is actually what inspired me to start these pause and process because I had been caretaking her. I had left my children in New Zealand while I took care of my mother in America, and I currently don't have a set home to have both my children in and for me to be in. I'm back and forth between New Zealand and America, and so there's a lot. My nervous system, and then I carry the I help so many people, so and then I also have, you know, things will pop up about all my clients that I have, and in my life, like, I feel everybody, and so, like, I'll notice that. So again, that's the other end. I'm more there, so I probably help more people with that in that range, but it's completely normal. Nothing. I feel nothing. I don't know what to do here. And then there's a whole range in the middle. So acknowledging is just really witnessing. That's why we even mindfulness is just noticing what's happening without judgment and curiosity and compassion, which actually that'll go back to my C's. And because B is breathing. So while you're acknowledging, you're taking a breath. Which I could do a lot of C's. Now I'm doing a conscious breath. You're taking a breath, acknowledging these things. And then the C, as I stress, are the most important, are compassion, containment, and coping thought. Now, there's a lot more C's before that. Consciousness, as I was mentioning, curiosity, um, is very key as well. I'm just going to focus, trying to simplify this. So focus on compassion. And then, so compassion means not judging. So whatever's coming up, this is why I'm saying, like, I have a lot of things that come up. And there was a time that a lot of things are coming up, and then you get overwhelmed, and then you think something's wrong with you. And so, compassion, whatever's coming up, is to really meet yourself like someone you love. Like if your best friend or your partner came to you with all these feelings, how would you want to show with them? Or your child came to you with all these feelings, how would you want to show up for them? And we want to treat ourselves like we would treat someone we love and respect. And so to be really compassionate, we have a tendency to be really hard and critical. We all have an inner critic that comes out, be very judgy. And actually, judgment is actually a byproduct of being in the survival part of our brain. So I've actually written a book, How to Train the Brain, and you can listen to other webinars that I have on that. But the brain obviously is very complex. But when we're under stress and overwhelmed and don't have time to process, and we have no safe place to process, express, and make sense of what's happening, what happens is our brains are magical. They're so amazing, and within an eighth of a second, we have a feeling, and within an eighth of a second, we have a reaction. And so that reaction has to work so quickly that it uses data that's stored in our brainstem. And so brainstem is anything that happened from us from under age 7, and it's implicit. We didn't know, it just got downloaded in there. And then any events that were traumatic, overwhelming, too much, too fast, too soon for our unique nervous system. And then we had no one to help us feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure, to help us make sense, process what was happening for us. So that's why it's really important to make this time. Yet, when we're stressed, we are going to judge. It is a way for our brain to quickly make a decision. And as I kind of originally was focusing Tuesdays, I would bring up political stress so that people could consent and choosing to come up on Tuesdays when I would do these previously. So I'm going to talk about political stress because and racism, because unfortunately we're all human race. There's actually really no difference. We are all humans. We all are a gift to this world, and depending on your culture and your environment, weaves in how you are and your languages. I mean, it's massive. My master's is human development and family studies, so I can go on. However, when we're feeling afraid and stressed, we're going to default, and we're going to want to attract to people um, that are like us, and that's what our brain does. So, and we make judgments. Oh, had an experience, my mom had an experience, someone we know had an experience with this, with these sensations, these images, and we make a judgment to keep ourselves safe, and it's quick, and we all do it. um, and we can't stop doing that. We're going to do that. What I help empower and why we need to pause and process is so that we can actually reflect and then say, wait, is this really true? True, challenge it, see if it's true. There's a whole bunch there. So with all that is going on, I this is so heavy. And almost, when I just flew in from New Zealand, it was my birthday, and like I said, I just recovered cancer, so I'm still have to be on medication for the next 5 years and tested and go to oncologists regularly for the next 5 years to make sure it doesn't come back. Um, so I gave myself 8 days off as I made this trip, and it's a long trip. If you've ever flown overseas, I I gave myself 8 days to take care of myself and to really just be there for me and listen to what my body needs so I can attune and get my needs met. And it's been wonderful. And it was a beautiful bubble. And I didn't even want to watch news, but it's really hard not to get the news. But I did well to just keep it on the surface. Containment, which that's why C is another container. I talk about compassion. So containment is when you make a conscious choice to put it aside, which is different than just numbing and suppressing. I'm not going to describe what all that means, but when I was saying I don't know what I feel, it's because most of us have learned is we're not allowed to feel. You can't feel feelings you weren't allowed to feel, and so we suppress and recess and repress and suppress. And that's an unconscious process. But if we consciously say, whoa, that's too big, I know I can't handle that much, and I don't want to handle that much right now because I just handled it. Then I'm going to put this aside in a container. And that could look very different for everybody. Whenever I'm with clients, you come up with something that resonates for you. For me personally, I have a few containers. As I mentioned, I'm more of that complex end. A lot comes up for me. So I have one container for personal things. It was actually my motorhome as a child. So for more family things, personal things, it's my motorhome that I had as a child, my camper that I use. 35-foot camper. I remember that. And then for more worldly and client stuff, I have in the universe. I have like an umbilical cord that goes into some sort of black hole in the universe, and then I just visualize stuff like that. And then there's even just a more simple one that I just don't even have an image to just say, you know what, I'm just going to put that over there. I'm just going to it's just a generic, put it over there. I've had people have drawers, trunks of cars, backpack, mason jars, water bottles, nothing wrong. So when I walk you through this exercise, you're just going to come up with a container of anything that just feels like too much but popped up, but you don't have the time to sit through it. You put that in the container. And that's something you want to journal, you want to go seek a counselor that's near you to process. You need to make time because, as I mentioned earlier, that we implode, we become sick, we have anxiety, we have depression, or we explode. We're yelling, we're using substances, we're impulsive, we're hurting. So it's going to come out some way. So it's really important to take time to open up that container and process it in a healthy way with someone you feel, in a way that helps you feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And the key to trauma. Trauma is anything that happens too much, too fast, too soon, and you have just no safe place to process, express, and make sense of it. And oh my goodness, in this world today, there's wars going on. Like I said, there's killings of people. Oh, I'm going to breathe as I notice there's just so much I want to say. But I also want this to be a place for you to come to unpack for you. So I want to get to the walking you through the exercise. And then coping thought is the other main C, that we want to wrap up this experience. So when you do this ABCs, you really can do it in 2 minutes. I'm just giving you the science behind it and walking you through and educating you on the process. But the goal is that you make this a quick, easy way to process stressors, and then to organize and know what needs more attention. So C is a coping thought, and a coping thought is a belief, a thought that has to feel true. You can't say something that's not true. So, like, you know, there's a lot of things about toxic positivity, like, oh, it's great, everything's great, it's gonna be fine. We could say that's a coping thought. Is it really gonna be fine? Does it really feel fine? Most of the time, it's not. So, you really want to pick a coping thought that is true. So, my most basic one I've done most of my life is I'm a good person. I truly know I'm a good person. So when I breathe that in, it settles my nervous system. I feel safe, seen, soon, secure. I feel calmer. And that's the other thing. When you do these ABCs, it leads to a lot more C's, which, if you're familiar with internal family systems, there's 8 C's. You're more compassionate, you have more clarity, confident. I always forget the long list whenever there's a list of things, especially because there's 8 C's. And little fun fact, our brain can only hold 7 bits of information. That's been shown we can hold a little bit more, but again, everything is um, in context. Depends on what's going on. So those are the main C's I focus on: are compassion, containment, and a coping thought. And just a little bit more about that coping thought, why that is so important to wrap, why this ABCs. I do it in this order, as I mentioned, and I'm trained in EMDR, and EMDR represents principles of memory reconsolidation. So the way to, as I was talking about, things get stuck in our brainstem, I use this is the hand model. Google Dr. Dan Siegel hand model. I also do a talk on it, as I interweave a lot more of my trauma work in it. But memory reconsolidation, as I mentioned, so much of our state memory is located here in our brainstem. And in my book, I use a gator, and that controls our breathing, our heart rate, our reflexes, and then, like I said, any implicit memories, and then trauma and events that we haven't processed get stored, and our core beliefs. A lot of our core beliefs are there. So, memory reconsolidation is the process by which you can pull up those memories. And the thing is, when you pull up those memories, you need to recall the emotions and sensations, the cognitions, the thoughts. It's a full body experience. You want to be able to activate any of that material that's coming up with that. So that's why I talk about notice your sensations. I have a lot of back pain. Notice anything you feel. If you feel it in your neck, notice those sensations. So, and at the same time, you have to, so in order to rewrite these programs, you have to be able to pull them up into your conscious brain. So we have to be aware. And then we have to hold a contradictory belief at the same time. And so that coping thought and compassion, and not feeling like you need to deal with it all at the same time you're experiencing those things, is actually what helps delete and reprogram and integrate. Integration is is another reason why I'm doing this, because a healthy integrated nervous system will be more, one of Dr. Dan Siegel's acronyms is FACES, will be more flexible, adaptive, energized, and have stable flow. And that's the goal. And that's why I've written a book when our nervous system is most developing, so that we can weave this in our daily lives. And that's why I'm doing pause and process as well. So that coping thought, at the same time that you're holding all that energy material, you're going to help rewire that message. And again, repetition is key, and also relationships. I'm a marriage and family therapist. We are wired to be in relationship. The parent-child relationship is the biggest, is the best intervention. So that is my hope, That's a lot that I do here. Um, so I'm going to walk you through the ABCs. I will do less talking now as I've just described what this is about. And this is your opportunity to listen and attune to your nervous system and practice the ABCs. So let's take another breath in. That's the B. And I just want you to acknowledge anything that's coming up for you. And keep breathing. So you just notice it and name it. Any thoughts, any distractions, any sensations, any images, feelings. And you breathe in between everything you're acknowledging. And if it's uncomfortable, you think you're doing it wrong, acknowledge that and breathe. And then the compassion is how you'd something you'd want to say to someone you love and respect. And for me, usually the first thing I say is, wow, that's a lot that you're holding. That makes sense that you're feeling that way. I'm sorry you have to go through this. And I'm sorry that all these people, whoever you're witnessing suffering, has to go through this. This is hard. Those are examples of compassionate phrases. You attune, tweak to what helps your nervous system feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And what you're going to notice is you're going to feel a little bit lighter, a little bit softer. That's the hope. So you'll know what compassionate phrases work for your nervous system, mind, body, and spirit when you feel a little lighter. And then if as you were saying that, but an image and a fear or something just kept coming, that's an example of needing a container. So let's take a moment and I want you to imagine a container that's going to serve you, that makes sense to you. And no right or wrong. I'm going to pull out my black hole in the universe one, and I'm going to imagine the weight and the feelings of helplessness and feeling like I should be doing more, and anger, uncertainty. I'm going to put that in my black hole. And so you just put whatever you want to put in your container. And you want to make sure it's a secure container. It can lock and it feels safe to you. No one can get to it. Because then I'll also ask you to put the container somewhere that feels safe to you. So you put whatever you want to put in there, and then imagine closing it up. One more time before I do that, I do like to say, let's take another breath in. Notice if there's any other thoughts, feelings, sensations that came up, and you just put them in there. And then imagine closing the container. Notice how that feels. And then put the container somewhere that feels safe to you. No right or wrong. I've had people put it in their closet, put it in their garage, put it in their basement. Doesn't matter. It's whatever makes sense to you. This is for you. And notice how that feels to put it away. And the important thing about it is you you do need to make a commitment to get to check in on it and to process it at some point. But for now, it's there and it's there to serve you. So if just pulling it out again to put more in it, that's okay. I'd rather you do that right now. If you don't have time to process what's in there, keep adding to it. Okay, that's what it's there for. It's there to help you, to serve you. Put it away, and then next is the coping thought. What is a thought that feels true? A common one I'm hearing right now is just helplessness, feeling like you can't do enough, you can't to make a difference, feeling grief, anger. So those are some few ones. So I'm just going to give a coping thought to the helplessness one. And a coping thought could be, I am keeping my family safe. I'm doing the best that I can to protect myself and my family so that we can make a difference in this world. If there's something you are specifically doing, you can say, acknowledge, well, that's an acknowledgement. I'm going to keep doing this one thing that I know is helping. I care. I know that I won't give up and I'm going to keep finding something that I can do differently is another example of a coping thought. Again, I'm a good person. This is a lot. So breathing in your coping thought. If you can tap, or I'm going to just weave in some bilateral stimulation, which is what makes EMDR or somatic experiencing. You can put your hand under your armpit here, wrap around and give yourself a hug and tap while you're saying the coping thought. This will give added benefits, the tapping. Tap your feet. Yet again, at bare minimum, if you could just say and breathe in and let that coping thought soak into your body, that's enough. Just meet yourself what feels um, soothing. And if you've ever gone to a yoga class, it's like with every intervention I share, yes, there is an extreme position that we could do this in. Yet that doesn't serve you if you're hurting yourself. So it's really important to meet yourself where you're at. And that's why I love working with children, because we have to meet them where they're at. They're little, tiny, vulnerable human beings who are afraid. And when we're afraid, we um, will often do things and react and do even worse things when we're feeling afraid. So that's why it's so important to pause, process, so that we can connect to our light, our best selves, so we can bring more peace and pleasure into this world. Thank you so much for taking this time for me, and I will come back and start doing these more regularly. I have many that I have recorded last year, um, and I had taken a big pause so that I could attune and listen to what cancer was telling me. So um, it's so important, again, not to judge. Your nervous system only knows your life. So I can guarantee you are carrying a lot. And please be kind to yourselves. Take wonderful care.